Hey everyone, welcome to the Elite Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Popple, and today I have an exciting guest. His name is Jared Ritter. He is the Bright Blazer broker. He and I met at this past GrowthCon convention. I know I've seen him there several times, but he is always dressed fashionably in his bright blazers. He has over 100 of those. So that's what he's known for, but he's also known for being a phenomenal real estate broker, and he was also in multifamily investors. So without further ado, let's bring on the Bright Blazer broker, Jared. Man, that's a tongue twister.
You did good, man. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. I'm definitely excited because you caught my eye at GrowthCon. I could kind of tell. The real estate people have a look, and then good ones have a branded look, and you got that completely covered. One of the sharpest dressed people there amongst lots of well-off people who are sharply dressed.
Yeah, man, you got to have fun. You got to stand out, right?
Definitely. Man, so it's definitely a pleasure having you here today. We'll start off with a little bit of your background on how you built your incredible career in real estate and how you actually started as a teacher. So what was it that led you to leave education and jump into real estate full time? Because that's a big transition and a big financial difference.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always entertaining whenever I, whether I talk to different classes or just, asking people what they think my background is, and hey, what do you think my major is in college, my degree? And usually people guess something with marketing or business or something like that. And unless people know me, they don't understand or don't realize that my degree is in English education. So I got my license while I was a college student. Actually, so I was a junior in college. I got my my real estate license for the state of Missouri. And, unknowingly started to build that foundation. I got my license in.
Well, what made you just, I mean, is that random? Did you have family in it?
Oh, it actually is family related. So I grew up with my parents owning, first they managed apartment buildings.
Okay.
And that's like some of my earliest childhood memories is my parents, they'd, tell me to run up the staircase and tell them how many light bulbs were out on these 3 floors. And I'd run back up there and, count the bulbs, so some of my earliest childhood memories have to do with real estate. And my parents ended up buying the apartments that they managed. Then my mom got her real estate license. She sold for almost 20 years. So I kind of had it in my blood per se. So I thought, well, hey, if I'm going to be a teacher, if I sold a few houses in the summers, that would really help my teacher salary. And that was my whole motive behind it.
Dude, that's amazing. So what made you decide to make the switch and leave teaching full time and go straight into real estate?
Yeah. So like when I got my license, it was August of 2013. I sold nothing the rest of that year. I only sold 1 house the entire next year. And then I sold 6 houses or transactions, buyer or seller, the year after that. So 2.5 years, I sold 7 properties, nothing. But it was always in the back of my head that I didn't think I'd be a teacher for 30 years. I thought maybe administration, superintendent, something like that. However, I didn't anticipate it to only be 2 years, because once I went full time, there was a period in there where I thought, well, hey, now that I'm graduating, maybe I just go full time into real estate because I got my license as a junior. I was in a multi-level marketing company like many people back in the day or currently or whatever. And so I thought, well, I'll just do that. I'll just do that full time. Then kind of got an interview through the grapevine and thought, man, back in my home district, that'd be amazing if I could. So I jumped into teaching. After year 1, I knew it couldn't just be a year. I felt like I was, hanging in there for my kids, and my co-staff was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of year 2, I was starting to get a little busier as a real estate agent. I was calling people back in between classes. I would say I was a 7 to 3 teacher and 3 to dark 30 real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Just grinding, man, just hustling. And I was becoming a 50-50 type person, 50% teacher, 50% agent. And quite frankly, that's not good for anybody, my clients or my kids. So I was kind of forced to make a decision after year 2, man. And obviously it was a good decision. It was a tough one, but ended up going full time in real estate.
Dude, man, I love that. And I mean, in that early childhood, that just sounds so special, like, I mean, just like having memories like that. I helped my uncle similarly in high school during the real estate boom. He was a property appraiser, and he
Oh,
lived
nice.
hours. He kind of did a lot in the whole Panhandle of Florida, but lived 2 hours away in Tallahassee when I was over near Destin. And so, oftentimes when he had appraisers in my area, he'd send me the check sheet for me to go in there, and it would just be all right. They installed the bathtubs, they got the showers.
Yes.
And so that way the guys could get their draws on construction jobs and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So no, it's and I cherish that, because I definitely think that was some of what got me to start to see the financial possibilities of everything that surrounds real estate. Because I mean, there's the real estate buying and selling itself, but I mean, as you know, your background, your parents started as property managers, so there's that whole management side of things, and there's there's so many jobs around it. So no, it's cool that you guys had that early connection. In the short time, you've been doing it though, relatively, you've grown your real estate company huge. You got I think over 40 agents. You're also in the multifamily, owning approximately 140 doors. What were the key steps in the early part of your real estate career that set you on this path?
Man, that's a really good question, because when my mom started our real estate company that I took over, it was just made to be a small family company. I had one singular transaction outside of our company at the firm we used to be at. And then when my mom started Ritter Real Estate, she just wanted to be a small family thing. And it was her, myself, my sister. And it was really weird whenever we had a couple of people join us without a Ritter last name. It was like, oh, okay. So it was people kind of noticing what we were up to, wanting to be a part of it, and really not even considering what this could become, and really just leading by example and having other people join on. And don't get me wrong, I've learned a lot about business. I think, some people believe that just because you're good at, your whatever you do for a living, like whether it's sales or you name it, it means that you'll be a good business person too. Well, that's not always the case, because really I was good at sales. I was good at selling real estate. It doesn't always translate into becoming a good business person. So there's been a whole lot to learn on the real estate broker side, and that transition of being a broker and, serving my agents versus serving buyers and sellers.
Right. No, I totally get that. I'm outside of real estate investing, I own restaurants where I have over 40 employees, and managing people is definitely I can tell you, the way I am now versus the way I was 10 years ago in my restaurant, completely different person.
Absolutely.
I am such a nicer person. I'm so much more understanding. I know how to talk to people. I don't immediately show frustration. So yeah, no, it's learning in business is a growing it's a growth deal that that you do have to learn. But yeah, and it's something that some people get and some people don't. But you've clearly got it, because there's a lot of solopreneurs in real estate. And managing 40 agents is impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going from the solo agent to building the Ritter real estate into a company with over 40, what was the key that kind of helps you with that growth? And how do you maintain that success while scaling the business?
Man, such a good question, because you're going to get things wrong, like we kind of just alluded to, right? And like you said, you've changed over 10 years, and I hope I have too, because unfortunately, but fortunately, as leaders, I think you have to make decisions, and then you have to live or die by those decisions. And not every single decision that you make is going to be the right one. Maybe you had really good intentions, or maybe you thought people would appreciate something even more, or, everybody's going to get fired up about this, but you got the opposite reaction. I have tons of stories like that in business, right? And whether it was right or wrong, the thing you have to do is simply make those decisions and live with the outcome. And I think that's an okay thing. I think that's otherwise you'll just be chasing perfection. You'll make zero progress and not have anything to live with. You'll just be stuck with where you're at. So I think it's being willing to have trial and error. while pursuing the best intentions, trying to care about people, trying to care about growth, and also understanding that there has to be a marriage there as far as what's good for the client, the customer, the agent, the employee, whatever it happens to be, and the business itself. So it is a, when you think about a real estate transaction, or a service provided, there's one pot of money after that service has been provided. And then how many ways can you split it up and still make everybody happy? That sounds simple until you try to make everybody happy, right?
Right.
So that's just, give and take, and like you said, you learn with it.
Yeah. One of the things I liked in your bio, is that how you help your team achieve their personal, professional, and financial goals.
Yes.
How do you use that to like keep that team, motivated? Because I'm assuming you kind of use that to try to figure out, with each individual employee, how they tick and what's going to motivate them, as so everybody's motivated differently.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we have one thing that we try to hang our hat on, it is those PPF goals, personal, professional, and financial goals. Obviously, along with our mission, vision, and core values, and giving people something to align to, and trying to encourage them to find out what they want in their life. Most adults, if you ask them like, "Hey, what do you want?" they may not have the best answer. So even if it's just the encouragement of having our agents think out loud and asking them, what do you want personally, or where do you see yourself going professionally, or what do you want to accomplish financially? We offer those PPF goal meetings where we sit down with our agents as well and attempt to not only go over their goals, but help them hit those goals and then celebrate them. So one of our biggest things in our value proposition is that winning culture. So in any business, I don't care what it is, it all comes down to culture. Do people enjoy working there? Do they have fun when they come to work? Do they have someone they call a best friend at work? All these things add up to, them possibly staying or leaving.
No, definitely. So how often do you do those PPF meetings?
We offer them probably quarterly, because our agents are 1099s. Everybody's kind of all over the place. Would love to have that as more of a regular thing, but little, like I said, give and take in the 1099 world. But I also think the benefit is our agents know it's an open door policy. I will have my door open at all times, or meet with anybody, agents and staff for that matter. But it could be a formal PPF meeting where they turn the sheet in and give me time to go over it and ask them questions, yada yada. Or it could be just going and getting coffee and touching base about life and seeing how their progress is going towards those goals.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I think offering it quarterly is definitely, I would say more than enough probably for someone in a 1099 career, because I mean, you got to have a certain level of self-motivation and and go getter about yourself to even have a chance to be successful in real estate. Like if you're not a self-starter, being a real estate agent really isn't a good career choice.
Exactly. And I think also leading by example is huge. Like I'm very vocal about my goals and very open about my goals. And I think that transparency helps people connect as well. And I've been writing my goals down almost 1,700 days in a row, every single day, personal, professional, financial goals. So I commonly talk about that. My agents know that. They know I have this big streak going. And I think that as well leads by example and provides some encouragement.
I love that. Over 1,700 days.
Almost 1,700. Like
over 1,700 days.
Yeah,
So,
it was actually like 1,676 days in a row.
Wow. Okay. So now this is just for me. If everyone else is going to get the benefit of this. So I'm curious now, is this like a morning thing, an evening thing? How do you work this in your day? Because I'm assuming it's the same time every day.
Yes. So it is worked into my morning routine 99% of the time. And it's one of those kind of perfect things to do at the beginning of the day. I know Grant Cardone, he's a guy, obviously we both follow, and
exactly.
He talks about there's 3 different times you should write your goals, in the morning, in the evening, and when you're in a rut. So now when he talks about writing goals, from me listening to him, his is more so grabbing a blank sheet of paper, choosing a spot and just seeing what comes to mind and writing that down, and then possibly creating a goal out of that. So my goals are repetitive. I write the same goals every day, but obviously you got to be willing to adjust them, to change them, and not be afraid to shift, right? Because if I wake up and something's less important, then that's probably for good reason. But I separate them out in those personal, professional, and financial categories. I write them down in the past tense. I follow the SMART method, which is very common, and I fit that into my morning. It's the first thing that I do once
let me pause real quick because I don't want that SMART method to be lost upon everybody else. SMART was an acronym. I caught it because I study heavy success stuff like Jared here. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. It's specific, measurable,
attainable.
Let's see. Blanking on that one. Relevant and timely.
That's right, man. That's right.
All right, cool. I was close, but yeah, no, and I think that's really great. I actually recently I've done 75 hard 3 times.
Yes.
And I recently did phase 1.
Nice.
In phase 1, you have to spend 10 minutes a day on visualization. And so kind of what I did during that period of time, and I'm still doing that because I really like this task, is I would set a timer for 10 minutes and I would just write out my perfect life, like a day in my perfect life, yeah. And so, but I think the underlying message is be focused on what you want, so whether you do it as a line or do it like Grant did, kind of like let your mind drift, or like I said, mine's kind of probably halfway in between. I probably blended yours and Grant's with that because I had a lot of repetitive stuff that I was saying every day, but then I would, I'd go ahead and write out like, my girlfriend and I get up every morning and walk the beach together. So I like do that, then we come back to our home and work out, like all the things, that like would be in the perfect life, for me. You guys don't have beaches in Missouri, so I don't know what that means.
We got some lakes, but no, I love that, man.
Yeah. No, all right. So I love talking some numbers. So this next question, I was at talk to you a little bit about your, 2020 when you doubled your sales volume. I want to kind of also highlight, just to make these numbers stick out more, what is the average transaction size, like the average sale in Missouri?
Yeah, and that's where, talking these transactions, it really kind of hits home, I think, because our average last year, I think, was like 228, which is much different than Florida.
I knew it. I didn't want to guess me wrong, but I was expecting a sub 300 price. So we were very close to 200. So good. I want to point out because in 2020, you doubled your sales volume from 30 million to 62 million. You continue that momentum into 2021. I want to know what strategies you did to attribute that massive growth, and if there was any pivotal decisions that you think led to it. But I just want to give you a second to give you props because, like, just doing some simple math real quick. I mean, if you divide either of those years, 30 million by the 220 or the 62 million by the 220, that is a lot of houses sold. That's a lot of real estate agents getting fed. That's a lot of people getting into a new home. Probably a lot of those first-time home buyers. Yes. So I mean, there's just a lot to be proud of in that number. Like not just for you and your team, but like all the people that you helped achieve that home. So, but let's get to it. Like, what did you do what strategies do you attribute to that massive growth?
Yeah. Obviously we were in a big growth mode, growing our agents, growing our teams. And a lot of this, we goes back to the 1099 conversations. Like, how can you hold people's feet to the fire? Well, you can't like make them show up, you can only do so much. So I think the biggest thing people need to do in the 1099 world is just give people enough to be a part of. If I create a new club that if you hit this sales amount, you get to be part of X club. That's a cool thing that people can chase and feel like they belong to.
Yeah.
We try to provide a lot of fun things and incentives. And of course, we hang our hat on having those resources and training opportunities for our agents. But I'll be honest, I know we also talked about like my personal numbers during that time were bizarre. And I had my best year was in 2020 as a sales agent. And obviously I've been in this transition mode to play more broker than sales agent, but I did 210 deals in 1 year by myself. And that was called insanity. So, as far as what I did, to answer the question, it's
I got to pause just to make sure everyone didn't catch this. I'm a math guy. 200 sales in a year. That's like, basically not selling something every third day. he has more days in the year he's selling something that he's not. So basically, out of every 3 days every 3 days, he doesn't sell something.
Right. It was
That is nuts.
I appreciate it, man. And
Yeah.
kind of looking back, it's good, but it's also like slightly eye-opening to the chaos that it was. Because I don't know who would turn down that many sales. I certainly wouldn't, but the things that we have in place now, 5 years later, are so many of the things that I did not have back then, right? Like we were the small family company that was growing and people were excited about, and hey, I want to be a part of that. And hey, I see you being successful. The market was growing, it was, obviously a really good market at the time. So we had a lot of things going the right way. But to do that many sales and keep my head straight, I also got up for a year and a half at 2:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And that's great and all, but it's also insane, right? That's called insanity. So
Right.
I would literally have a structured minute to minute morning routine from 2:30 to 7:30 or 8, whenever the day got started for appointments and stuff. And while it was crazy, it was some of my favorite hours of the day because that's when the phone wasn't going crazy. I could take my notes, my to-dos. I had my infamous black notebook that I kept everything in. And again, there was no systems, there was no process. And it's hard to continue growth like that forever. And I think that was one of the big realizations is in my craziest best year, selling 210 deals in a year's time. Is that the ceiling? Maybe probably by myself with my current, like efforts. I can only get up so much earlier. I only had so much time in the day, just like every other person. So
I don't
eventually,
know how you could get up any earlier than that, because you're one of the first few people that have me beat on a wake up time. So I'm in the forest,
Yeah. So eventually you have to have structure, you have to have process, you have to have help. And, after living through that, luckily living through it, I was able to come out on the other side. And that's when we started really getting serious about process and documentation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some of those like processes you have in place now that you didn't have, in that crazy year?
Yeah. And that's, honestly, the way we approach it too is like, how can we provide the support that if an agent was dealing with that, they would be successful and not have to be living through the insanity, right? So like we've done things as a company where we've mapped out the buyer's process, the seller's process. We have a template for every single form our agents could use. We have a line by line what they might typically see filled out in those forms. We have videos of me explaining the forms. We have videos of me explaining, like I said, the process, follow-ups, just all sorts of information that they can click on in a moment's notice and have it right there in front of them. Obviously, I had some good support, but we've added to that. The agents have myself, they have my team, they have a one-on-one mentor, they have their onboarding plan. We just really try to make it very hard for people to fail. And, Brandon Dawson steal his definition of leadership. It's making others' success easy. So we really try to take that mantra as a staff and as a leadership team and say, well, how can we make the success of our agents where they do not have to recreate the wheel, and it is just so easy for them to succeed.
Yeah. Speaking of Brandon, did you do a 10X 360?
Yeah. And then I brought my staff and we did a second one. So I've been a couple times.
Okay, cool. I was guessing that because I could tell there was so much PPF and there was a lot of that you'd see through 360 and how you run the business. So is he kind of who sets you up on like the right path on how to set up those processes in place, or do you guys use Google Drive for those videos, or what kind of how do you organize like that kind of training structure?
Yeah. We use the Google Sheets, and then the Google Sheets is like their form of Excel. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's where everything's stored in the process tracker.
Yeah. So we got a little ahead of ourselves because I was actually wanting to ask you about how you did that $32.9 million year in 2020 with over 200 transactions. You said you started at 230. I was going to ask, what was your day-to-day like during that period?
Yeah. And like I said, I turned completely obsessive into my routines. And I think that's what people have to do, because especially in a career where your day-to-day looks different every single day. That's one of my favorite things, but it also can be chaotic without any structure. So having your morning and your evening rituals, your routines, you absolutely have to have that structure. Like we go everywhere in life, whether it's good things or bad things, church, school, restaurants, you name it, people have rules for us, how to behave, how to act, how to order, what do you have to follow. So if we're going to have people create rules for ourselves, we have to be able to create them as well. So, those morning routines, I treat like absolute gold and follow it to a minute by minute basis. So, and quite frankly, if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't get up. I'm a full believer that, the night before you go to bed, if you're going to get up the next day, right? 100%. Because if it's a maybe and you're trying to get up early whatsoever, you're not going to get up if it's a maybe, right?
100%.
So if I know that, there are things to get done and I have to follow a certain schedule, then I'm most likely going to get up, right? So a lot of it goes back to adding structure in the routines.
No, I love that. So I know, like I said, because a real estate agent and broker's day can vary a lot. Do you have like kind of a structure to your day that has like block windows of like, okay, I'm doing this, then from 2 to 5, I'm open for whatever, driving around or something. Yeah, just as an example.
Yeah. So, and now my life looks a little bit different as the broker, right? And I have more, what I guess would be considered office meetings or staff meetings. And I hold very regular training sessions for my agents. So my calendar is built around a lot of those. Every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., we have a training on Zoom. Every single Wednesday, we have a weekly meeting, 10 to 12:30. We feed our agents. Very structured, very standard stuff, right? But like I said, in the world of real estate or a career that maybe your day doesn't look the same, it might feel like it's kind of all over the place. So my mornings, I try, and I will, 100% schedule a meeting if I need to. But my mornings usually look the same up until 9:15, whenever I have to head from my morning meeting, which is always at 9:30 every day. So nests are a popular kind of phrase that we use, your spheres of influence, not groundbreaking things. People have heard of these things before, but I start my day pretty much every day at the same spot, unless it's in my home office, I go to Panera. It's 3 minutes from my house. It's called my nest, right? Everyone knows me there. Everyone knows my order there, all the regulars, all the staff. And that's part of our business too, is to be seen and get attention. And a nest should not only be a place that you can go, like a sphere of influence, and provide influence and be there, but a nest should also be a place that you work. So I have my schedule of, whenever I get to my nest, I write my goals. It's the very first thing. I check my email. I do my to-do list. I start my day. A lot of my day, I start with putting tasks in other people's mailbox, right? And I clear my desk off. I clear my plate off. And I like to start my day with putting all of that on everyone else's plate, right? Because then I can approach the day not really wondering what else is still there.
That's a great way to look at it. And I mean, it's really what you're supposed to be doing as the leader in charge of everyone. Because I mean, yeah, you can't be you can't be doing the little task, and missing out on the big task. So I mean, that's a great way to structure it. So since doing that, do you have like a basically where everyone on your team, they have like a time period, I guess, where they're checking their inbox to make sure they're on everything?
Yeah, of course they have their roles and their jobs and that kind of thing. Really, a lot of it's structured around the 9:30 meeting we have every day is an all team meeting,
Okay.
daily all team meeting. So those are set up the same, where everyone goes over their previous day, their current day. We go over any KPIs needed. Our Tuesdays are our weekly all team meetings, so it's a little bit longer of a meeting, but the same thing. And then every morning, we spin a wheel, go around. Everybody shares a win, and then the last person to go, not only shares a win, but has to read from a book to start the day, as well as like a little golden nugget.
Yeah, I like that. Is there a particular book or that you have them read for every time, or is it random?
We've used a few different ones, but we really get stuck on one of my favorite books because every single line is like a nugget. I swear, I've never highlighted more in a book, so it works out perfect for this. But it's Dr. Robert Anthony's Beyond Positive Thinking. It is a phenomenal book if you've never read it before.
I'm writing it down right now. I believe I've heard of it though.
Yeah, Beyond Positive Thinking, and it's not like a foo-foo, positive thinking, happy thoughts book. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I might have read that on Audible. I'm gonna have to go back and check. That sounds familiar, but no, I'm definitely gonna look it out. So you built a great company with a focus on helping other agents achieve their personal, professional, and financial goals. How do you structure that company's culture to support your agents, and then what is your approach to mentoring them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And like I said, one of our main three parts of our value proposition is that winning culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then just anything and everything to do with that. We try to be very involved. We have a massive chalkboard on one of our office walls that agents can write their wins on. We do a daily call with our agents as well, which obviously is optional, but like I said, we try to offer a lot, right? So 6:45 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. We offer a Zoom where agents can log in. We start the call off by sharing wins. So again, that winning culture where you know that every single day you can log in, be inspired, hear your peers share their wins and celebrate them, share your own wins. And then I always end the call with a kind of like a word of wisdom as well. So it's that ongoing culture of being cheerleaders for each other, supporting each other. And I can't remember the rest of the question. If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, we kind of touched on a little bit, just the ways you support, mentor them. But yeah, I think we covered that in the quarterly meetings, then just basically everything you offer them. A little bit before because man, I'm so intrigued how you run your whole brokerage, but for the investor side, I want to go on that a little bit before we go into part two, where we'll get into that a little bit more. So, out of all this, when did you start acquiring real estate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let's see here. I would have been, I think, 22 years old when I bought my first house.
Okay.
And so that was number one. That was property number one.
Okay, cool. And then did you stay in that, start buying other stuff, or did you move out of that, turn to a rental, and buy more?
Yeah, I bought that. One of the only deals I've ever backed down on in my life was my first deal. And I was under contract FHA loan with a 4-unit. And I met one of my very good friends to this day now was my home inspector that I met at that first deal. And at first I was like, Robert Kiyosaki, like I'm never going to sell anything ever, I'm just going to keep everything until I die. And I do feel that way about some things, but he asked me, he's like, so do you want to keep this property for a while? And I was like, oh yeah, for life, And he was like, well, I just got to be honest with you. You're buying a money pit. And we walked around, we cut the inspection early, paid him half the money. And I walked away from that deal. And I was kind of bummed, even though it was the right decision. Some the best deals are the deals you don't buy. Right.
Right.
And, starting off being new, it just wasn't a good deal for me. But I was still like really amped up to buy something. And I wanted the 2 to 4 units, able to use an FHA loan, right? Couldn't find anything, but I was still hungry. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy a nice residential home that I know I can eventually rent out. And so that's what I did. Pulled the trigger on house number one, nice residential home near the college, FHA loan, and started that. And then from there, it was all about, just buying the best locations. And that's what I focused on.
Cool. Well, man, I think this is a great point to break it so we can go to part two. But before we close out this episode, where is a good place for people to find you if they want to use you as a broker in Missouri, or if they just want to learn more about your multifamily investing and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest is probably Instagram at Bright Blazer Broker, which is obviously my brand, Bright Blazer Broker.
Easy enough. And if you guys want to see anything more about the Elite Real Estate podcast, please check out our website, theeliterealestatepodcast.com. We're definitely trying to build up our subscribers on YouTube. So please go to the YouTube and subscribe to the Elite Real Estate Podcast. And as always, I own several Clean Eats locations on the Emerald Coast down here in Florida and South Alabama over in Mobile. So if you're ever in the area, please come in and dine with us at Clean Eats. We're a healthy cafe and meal prep company. Love to serve you. We're great for busy professionals. That's why we have our prepackaged meals ready to go. So, hey, Jared, after this show, I'll actually tell you about how I can ship some meals to your door for just $8.99 a meal. So that way you can stay working and not have to even go to Panera. So, but I know Panera is where you go for your nest, so you got to keep that up. But yeah, like I said, I got your lunch covered.
Love that.
But anyway, guys, appreciate y'all listening to the Elite Real Estate Podcast. Jared has shared a whole lot. He's got more to share in part 2, so please check out this next episode. We can't wait to see you there.